Take it from geophysicist Stefan Burns, this is real. We've had fireballs in our atmosphere pretty much since March began. Texas seems to be a hot spot. All right. See, that title is called Geoengineering, a Chronicle of Indictment, exposing the global climate engineering cover-up. That book was written by Dane Wigington. Well, the bad news is, if you are just waking up and enjoying your day, the geoengineering fog composed of graphene oxide, reduced graphene oxide, nanoplastic polymers, and the famous aluminum barium strontium brew is probably being deployed a few thousand feet above you. Sadly, it's true. Barium and strontium have been in the brew since the Vietnam era. Aluminum began to be added in the late 90s and into the early 2000s, aluminum oxide, that is. Now, the latest addition is graphene oxide, reduced graphene oxide. Graphene and reduced graphene oxide can be used to artificially nucleate ice. So the graphene oxide and the silica dioxide combine to form the black core. That's what you see of the Frankensnow. Graphene is quite strong and resistant to stress and temperature. I'm sure this is not new to you if you've been in a recent blizzard. This new Frankensnow won't melt, and it really isn't quite snow-like. Seems the snow ultimately is a Franken fraud. In my opinion, the snow isn't the only fraud of immense proportions in the realm of geoengineering. In the past 10 years, we have seen several strange solar phenomena. One was called the Miracle of the Sun in Nigeria, and it took place on October the 13th, 2017. This was 100 years after the famous miracle of Fatima, the miracle of the sun that happened in Portugal. As I was watching at that time, in circa 2017, Planet X News, Dr. Claudia Albers analyzed the video. She's a physicist, and concluded that it was not possible for the actual sun to behave in this way, like a strobe light, as it were. She concluded that a sun simulator had malfunctioned rather than a miracle having occurred, or a miracle had occurred. The light looked just about identical to sunlight, but the look of the sun itself was slightly off. Its strobing, was seeming to expand its size and contract. It seemed perhaps there was more of a lens magnification of a smaller simulator into this larger spherical image, or this holographic image of the sun that was sort of malfunctioning. So it was magnifying its size and shooting out different intensity beams of light. So certainly sun simulators typically use xenon. Xenon is one of the halogen lights. It's a noble gas. It's probably the source of the light that these Nigerian, these Catholics, these worshipers saw during the supposed miracle of the sun. I know this was indeed a revelation when I saw it, but I see it as a revelation of a malfunction rather than the revelation of a miracle. Although if it helped people to see the truth, it is a miracle. But judge for yourself, a miracle of the sun from my Substack. And I have a shorter video of a blinking, what I'm saying is the blinking simulator. But to be sure, between 30,000 and 55,000 people attended the Congress, and all who gathered in this area, they all witnessed this sign. So, that's very important. We need to understand this was witnessed by a lot of people. Okay. And according to the Catholic Bishops' Conference of Nigeria, so history has repeated itself here in Benin City, Nigeria, during the National Marian Congress, just like what happened 100 years ago in Fatima, Portugal, reoccurred on October 13th, 2017. What a miracle from our Mother Mary, Our Lady of Fatima. So they claim the sun surged and pulsated, growing larger than smaller, dashing here and there. The brilliant globe displayed spectacular colors luminously reflected on the people. According to the 2017 edition of the Nigerian Diocesan Catholic newspaper, The Partner, Quote, the size of the sun increased and decreased. Its brightness also dimmed and brightened the more. Its color alternated between egg yolk, pink, blue, and white. Its shape also interchangeably became oval and spherical as the sun dilated and finally took its normal composition. The miracle lasted from 20 to 40 minutes. Staring at the solar spectacle for such a long time did not harm one's eyes. Now, as of 2026, these Catholic believers of Nigeria are claiming a more recent miracle of the sun took place last August, 2025. Now, to me, it looks like the magnifying lens or the lens projector associated with the sun simulator is malfunctioning. But what do I know? You can call it a new miracle of the sun. And the link is underlined here for you. Perhaps it is primarily HAARP, HAARP microwave arrays that are superheating the atmosphere, and as it passes, the energy beam passes down from the ionosphere, where they actually use that intense microwave radiation to stimulate the ions of the ionosphere. But this also can come back down, and it ends up superheating the atmosphere, creating a high pressure heat dome, what have you. That's HAARP, right? But if you look closely at these sun reflections, they don't look sun-like. I mean, this is just not what the sun looks like. This video is from Birmingham, England. It's called Jeff P. is Right About the Sun Simulator. I mean, there's supposedly a hyperboloid of rotation inside of here spinning, and that's what you're actually getting reflections of, is spinning hyperboloid of rotation. Again, what do I know? I'm not sure that's a plasma cone coming out of this thing. It just doesn't appear to be sun-like to me. Perhaps we have to agree to disagree. Nevertheless, the level of ultraviolet light is staggering. And of course, the intense heat is part of what the graphene needs to induce the artificial cooling. So like Dane says, Dane Wigington that is, these massive low pressure storms have hot sides where the temperature might be 20 degrees above normal, while you get a snowstorm a few hundred miles away. The Air Force declared in 1996 that by 2025, it would be able to own the weather, with graphene oxide able to artificially nucleate ice and water vapor, where they can make it rain like Baal in the Old Testament. The title is Weather as a Force Multiplier, Owning the Weather in 2025. Moreover, this graphene oxide, that's GO, then RGO, reduced graphene oxide stuff, is even more superconductive or conductive than aluminum oxide. And when you add the E. coli tails to this stuff, it can mutate the carrots growing in your garden and the cells growing inside of you. Google is not actually sure if those carrots are caused by graphene in the skies. Regardless, as Dane Wigington has shown, there are graphene skies overhead, and the time to tolerate this blatant, nefarious manipulation of the weather is over. So the link is for the link to graphene skies, the video, and then it's a video that Dane did in a Substack post that I did. So although this vision is certainly an awful abomination, thanks be to Dane Wigington and Mr. MBB333, now we have the eyes to see and the third eye of vision to pierce through the global fog. Of course, that video that he did is called Global Fog, right? The link is, I keep pointing, but the link is right there. Of course, we are not just talking about solar radiation management through a global chemtrail fog of light reflecting aerosolized nanoparticulates that end up in our breathable air column and ultimately our bodies, our water, and our soil. Though that is happening on the regular, and indeed it's quite a black pill to swallow. Dane did it, speaking of black pills, Dane did an excellent job documenting this ubiquitous global deployment of solar radiation management in the dimming. So Dane has made a personal investment of time that is significant over 20 plus years. He's made a great personal investment of time and treasure to get this vital information to you. Indeed, to be sure, Mr. MBB333 has also put a significant long-term investment of time and treasure into his channel. He has been able to generate a crowdsourced network of decentralized intelligence, human intelligence, that has sent Mr. MBB333 videos of the sun simulator malfunctioning. And that's right here, Sun Sim. Of course, he has also shown us the actual sun going dark, which is probably related to the reason the sun simulator technology was being employed or deployed in the first place. Sun goes dark for a sec right here. So to be clear, in the new reality, we have artificial light as well as artificial snow. The only problem is that the new light is too bright and the artificial Franken snow won't melt. So let's not forget that we are also living in a world of synthetic viruses made possible by this union of superconductive graphene oxide and the water light trapping properties of the reduced graphene oxide. So in this new reality, there is a synthetic symbiosis of graphene oxide and reduced graphene oxide in the air and water. And this nano lattice, where graphene oxide meets reduced graphene oxide, is a vector for viruses through its self-assembly mechanism. You have to think big in order to see small. So here's the interaction between Google Gemini and me on the topic of using graphene oxide and reduced graphene oxide, along with these nanoplastic polymers and hydrogels for the self-assembly of synthetic viruses. I'm not going to read all this, but you are more than welcome to. Then I go on to ask, when you throw in those 5G millimeter waves and the 6G terahertz frequencies, could those frequencies perhaps instruct these nanomaterials as they self-assemble? And Google says yes, the frequency is an on switch. That graphene oxide and reduced graphene oxide have unique electronic properties that allow them to absorb energy in the gigahertz, which is the 5G, and terahertz, which is the 6G, range very efficiently. This energy could be converted into local heat, which could trigger thermoresponsive hydrogels to transition from a liquid-like state into a solid gel, like these white clumps inside of people, these terrible blood clots. Okay, that's what we're talking about. We're not talking about this just, my dryer went off, that's the alarm. We're not talking about this just in abstract. We're talking about this inside of people. And that these graphene-based programmable services can manipulate terahertz frequencies in real time. We don't know, but we know. So again, at the 6G, at this next level scale, we know the graphene flakes can function as little tiny antennas. They can convert the electromagnetic fields into mechanical force. They can be steered, okay? I mean, these things can act as though they have their own intelligence, but they're in fact being programmed and steered by the 5G and 6G frequencies, okay? They'll be a part of this Internet of Things, okay, or the Internet of Nano Things, where millions of these nano sensors and actuators inside of us, right, communicate via terahertz waves and then let the AI know what our kidneys are doing and how our liver is doing. And, it's for targeted drug delivery, supposedly. But these nanobots can cross the blood-brain barrier. They can go into the heart, the ovaries, the testes, just about everywhere. And you add the E. coli tails to them. Now we got synthetic and actual organic life being blended. And so that's where we are in this new crazy Wild West. I won't read all about all this. It's this abomination. You take your time to understand this. It takes a bit to unpack. But carbon, it's all about the carbon, the 666, right? Graphene is carbon. Graphite, which a carbon pencil is made out of, right? It's not lead, it's a graphite pencil. If you take graphite and go to like a 1 nanometer thick inch sheet, that's the graphene. It's a little ninja star with 6, it's hexagonal, it's got 6 facets to it. And then you can have the graphene and reduced graphene oxide. They have a hydrophobic and a hydrophilic aspect, and they can trap the water, and they can even trap light, if you will, in the middle. And that's what they can put a lot of things in this little cage, like a lipid, a nanoparticle, and they can put the RNA material in the cage, if you will. It's very important that you understand it's a perfect synthetic mimicry of how life works. Okay. So they can create artificial life essentially with this synthetic altered form of carbon. And they can be aerosolized, as in this can be sprayed upon us. Anyway, graphene is a potent nanotransistor. Once it's inside of you, it's connecting your different cells. It can help wire you up, so to speak. Well, that's the work of the Harvard and the Chinese, who can forget, the Chinese paid scientist, Dr. Charles Lieber. That's what he uncovered. He was one that was arrested right before during the COVID, early part of the COVID era, for helping China. Moreover, due to its hydrophilic, I just talked about that, bilayer of graphene and reduced graphene oxide, it can be used as a vaccine/virus delivery vector. It can be reduced via the gigahertz, the microwaves in the millimeter range, the 5G frequencies, can be reduced by adding E. coli to it. So when you create this mixture of graphene oxide and reduced graphene oxide with this hydrophilic cage for trapping, okay? So when you combine this with the work of Dr. James Giordano, who talked about nanobots with DARPA to hijack our brain or hack it, you combine that with Dr. Charles Lieber and you think of the graphene oxide, reduced graphene oxide as the Trojan horse itself, you really get somewhere. And Google agrees with me. Google will play like it's abstract or theoretical. In that way, Google will certainly agree with everything you have to say, that this all could happen. You could use the graphene oxide, reduced graphene oxide particles to cross the blood-brain barrier. Okay, I mean, they could become a way to integrate an entire internet of bodies between your bodies and other people's bodies. They could connect your liver to your heart, to your kidneys, and they could help. It could do a lot of good potentially as well if you really trusted the powers that be. Okay, so. Be right back. So that's where we are. We're at this point where graphene can be used as a skeleton key to sort of unlock these 7 seals in us, but to make a new beast system. A new mark of the beast system. Okay, but graphene is a skeleton key to get to hack into our consciousness. It's like the spike protein can sort of hack its way into the esophageal tract, the epithelial cells that are in the esophageal tube that goes down to your stomach. It's a truly awful abomination, but it's also an eye-opening time. Because this graphene, if it's deployed in aerosol in the sky, if it's then reduced via the gigahertz microwaves, it will phosphoresce in this violet purple color. So if the sky just turns violet purple and you have this intense lightning across the sky, that's the activation of graphene to turning it into reduced graphene oxide, which makes it even more superconductive. I mean, that's like a sign, if you will. But the bottom line is that graphene oxide, aluminum oxide, strontium, and barium oxide are all combining to make our skies water and our eyes toxic, like Britney Spears, but toxic in a bad way. Our vision and our brains are getting blurry. I can't see anymore in this chemical fog that correlates with the negative aspect of Neptune. The Illuminati are trying as usual to keep us ignorant, sick, and in the dark. In the fog of war that is associated with Neptune and Aries, Israel seems to have just committed another false flag attack, this time on our Diego Garcia base. Mainstream media is claiming this was Iran, but Iran has denied responsibility. That's from Al Jazeera. Did Iran launch missiles at a US-UK base on Diego Garcia? Here's what to know. United Kingdom condemns what it says is an Iranian attack on airbase in the Indian Ocean, but Tehran denies it carried out the launches. Well, call me crazy, but I believe Tehran. So, of course, Saturn being conjunct Neptune. It's not just Neptune. We got Saturn. Saturn conjunct Neptune in Aries will immediately remind us of the USS Liberty in 1967, in which Israel struck in the hopes of getting the Americans under LBJ to believe it was the Egyptians. However, the ship did not sink, and the surviving sailors tell a harrowing tale. Saturn conjunct Neptune will help us get to the truth of this important issue. Betrayal by our supposed ally. Et tu, Brute. The fog of war is getting thick. Iran has not been shy about suggesting that the United States and Israel, and actually European countries, they claimed, are and have been using weather modification technologies to deny them rainfall. They have been alleging this for about 15 years now. This headline from 2025, Iranian expert Mohsen Arbabian, the U.S. and Israel manipulate the weather, shifting clouds away from Iran in order to cause drought. They said he claimed they've been doing that for 40 years. That's how long the cloud seeding, that's how long the manipulation of the weather has been occurring according to them. Now, Iran's previous president, Mr. Ahmadinejad, directly stated that the United States and Israel are using electromagnetic means of controlling the weather and diverting rainfall from Iran to neighboring countries. Here is a piece of the Al Jazeera article from 2011. The headline is, "You've stolen our weather. Iran's president blames the West for his country's water shortages." And so the proof is that as recently as 2009, Chinese meteorologists claim to have brought about Beijing's earliest snowfall in a decade after seeding clouds with silver iodide in an attempt to end the ongoing drought. The resultant disruption to road and rail transport suggests that snow was probably not the object or the objective of the experiment. A good soaking of rain was probably what they really were hoping for. The problem with weather modification is whether it can be proved that the weather was indeed modified or whether that it had occurred naturally. That's still the issue. It is likely that Mr. Ahmadinejad was specifically referring to the use of electromagnetic waves to control weather. Quoted at the opening of a dam in the central province of Iraq, I'm going with Iraq. He told reporters, quote, "According to reports about climate, whose authenticity has been verified, the European countries have used certain equipment to discharge clouds and prevent rain-bearing clouds from reaching regional countries such as Iran. The quote, certain equipment, end quote, to which he refers is probably known as atmospheric resonance technology, Tesla technology." Okay. So reports of experiments to use this technology for the modification of weather patterns can be traced back to the early 1990s. And HARP, remember, angels don't play this harp. HARP is High Frequency Active Auroral Research Program, an ionospheric research program. Okay, so he who controls the weather controls the world, right? Jimmy Dore is adding his voice to this all-important issue and inviting other important voices to this all-important cause of clearing our skies of the weather warfare and our mind of all the lies. So Jimmy Dore, toxic skies. Certainly, the good news is that people are waking up to the reality of what President Lyndon Baines Johnson said. He who controls the weather will control the world, the world's cloud layer. So this notion of weather warfare was a well-known fact in the 70s. Weather warfare was openly acknowledged in the Senate hearings during the so-called time of the Church Committee, and the treaties were created to ban its use. Okay, that was during Vietnam, Operation Popeye. We flooded the Ho Chi Minh Trail with cloud seeding with silver iodide. Okay, Claiborne Pell chaired the hearings in 1972 that were going on the same time as the Church Committee when the CIA had weather warfare weapons and had traditional assassination techniques. And it was all being discussed in the 70s. And by the late 70s, we had decided to ban widespread, long-lasting, or severe manipulation of natural processes, including the atmospheric composition of weather and weather patterns as a means of warfare. So following the international treaty, the U.S. passed the National Weather Modification Policy Act of 1976. To this day, I mean, people have to report their aerosolized activities to NOAA. So 1972, New York Times, rainmaking is used as a weapon by the U.S. That was Seymour Hersh, Cy Hersh. That was supposedly the CIA and the military had been using cloud seeding over Indochina in 1963. The report detailed how the CIA initiated these operations over Hue to disrupt Buddhist demonstrations by inducing rain, making it rain on the Buddhists. Exposure Operation Popeye was 1971 and 72. Again, silver iodide over to extend the monsoon season over the Ho Chi Minh Trail. So here we go. We're in now. It's a new energy on the planet. Molly McCord's clear videos and testimony about the current planetary alignment leave no doubt that we as humans are in a powerful transition from passive spectators to spectacular co-creators. Soon our erstwhile overlords will find out that there is no easy off-ramp for the conflict they have started in Iran. Pluto and Saturn in a sextile in Aquarius starting this Friday are creating that funnel of heavenly chi to help us chant down Babylon. Breathe deep, folks. Breathe through your bellies. Sacrocranial pump engage. In the words of William Blake, bring me my bow of burning gold. Bring me my arrows of desire. Bring me my spear, O clouds unfold. Bring me my chariots of fire. It's from William Blake's Jerusalem. Now, when I went to Brown Park to run on Saturday, I saw a young girl actually throwing a spear. I thought it was a javelin, but as I approached, I could see it actually was a spear she was throwing. It certainly looked to me like the literal Aries energy being manifested in humanity. It was an amazing synchronicity. This is a moment of oneness. We are coming back into alignment with our higher selves and the earth at the same time. We could hear it echoed in the name, Mali McCord. To be sure, it is the silvery cord that connects us to our higher self. This is a time to be emboldened, as Aries is the time of awakening in action. Okay. So let's go a little further. So, although we are propelled to action, Mali does say that after many past lives on Earth and elsewhere, many of us are reluctant to once again enter the fray of intellectual conflict and call for our arrows of desire and our chariot of fire, so to speak. The past life baggage, that horse that Florence says she's always dragging around and shake it out, relates to the pain of being unsuccessful at stopping previous wars and or being on the losing side of previous momentous pivots of civilizations, such as World War II, during the time of Atlantis, Jesus, or the Israelites in the time of Moses before the Messiah, etc. Certainly, we must indeed shake it out. Perhaps it can be better expressed as stating that trauma from previous lifetimes, deaths, and misery can act as a seeming force of integration within our collective psyches when it begins to surface and when we allow ourselves to face it as our shadow without fear. One example of this is the little boy, James Leininger, from Lafayette, who was having nightmares of dying in a plane crash after his parents realized that the little boy was not making this up, and he truly would have had no means of naming the aircraft carrier he had been stationed on in the Pacific when he had been shot down over Japan, the Natoma. He was able to stop having nightmares when he made peace with the reality that he had experienced death in a traumatic way. It was something difficult that he had to process. And so we're all going through that. We've all had bumpy rides in the past. And, things are about to get bumpy again, especially if we're in the Northern Hemisphere. However, there are signs it will be different this time. On February 20th, Neptune and Saturn were conjunct in the sign of Aries at exactly 0 degrees. On March 20th, the sun was at 0 degrees Aries. Saturn and Neptune have not been in alignment at exactly 0 degrees Neptune 0 degrees in Aries for 6,000 years. So the last time was likely 4361 BCE. Okay, so that time was basically in between the age of Gemini and the start of the age of Taurus, the bull. It marked the beginning of the Ubaid Empire in ancient Sumeria. This time was significant because it marked the beginning of large-scale irrigation and societal stratification. It was a time in which the social order was being sorted out, and the hierarchy from god to priest, king to warrior to farmer to woman was established. So why am I saying that? Well, it was 2,000 years before Abraham and 4,000 years before Buddha, Confucius, Lao Tzu, Moses, or Zoroaster. It was, interestingly, the time when the first house of God, the Apsu in Eridu, was being expanded from a modest shrine into a true palace. I argue this was a time when the Saturn-Neptune alignment at 0 degrees Aries phase-locked a certain rigid social hierarchy, maybe a dominant hierarchy that Jordan Peterson says governs our serotonin production in our guts. It was based upon the caste system that was most profoundly carried out in India. Okay, so an Eridu, Enki's house, was expanded upon. It was an era that solidified masculine patriarchal structures from the top down, i.e. from the Anunnaki, and from the bottom up. So the visible sign of that patriarchy was the temple of Enki. Now, to be fair, Enki was our true ally, and he was the helper god, shepherd, scientist of the Anunnaki. He wanted to let humanity rule over itself, or ourselves. He might have been turned into the serpent, after all, in the garden for wanting us to have wisdom and sovereignty. He is, after all, the firstborn son of Anu. I believe Anu of the Anunnaki is El Elyon of the Elohim. Anywho, it was his brother Enlil, also known as Yu, who had commanded Anki not to assist humanity during the flood. Anki, nevertheless, assisted Zeusudra, Atrahasis, Noah, Utnapishtim, these names are one story, by instructing him to build the ark. Enki was on the earth from those pre-Diluvian days when the kings of Sumeria reigned for tens of thousands of years, and then he left during the flood. After the flood, he seems to have preferred to let his sons Thoth and Marduk administer over Egypt and Babylon, respectively. It seems his name in Egypt became Ptah. According to Elena Danan, Enki, whose actual name is Ea, is still with us observing. He has returned, according to her, with the 12-sided DNA that he seemingly downgraded in us in some way when he engineered us. It does seem that according to the raw material, the Council of Nine on Saturn and the Logos decided that we would have shorter lifespans. We have to understand that the Sumerian kings lived tens of thousands of years, just as Adam lived 900 years, to understand that the pre-Diluvian age was simply a different kind of era of life on Earth. In the Law of One Material, Ra states that humans were not polarizing enough towards service to others or service to self. They weren't doing it fast enough. You have to understand that either becoming selfless or selfish is part of the plan. We have to activate that Kundalini force of transformation to become something greater. How we do it could either be from seeing ourselves as the God King on earth, whom others should literally serve as we take the life force energy from them and get off on it, or it can be becoming a person who is 51% or more committed to serving others. We can graduate like Rasputin and Genghis Khan, according to Ra, to become some kind of fourth density or even fifth density negative entity or psychic demon. That thought is not comforting. However, by the time of reaching the mid-sixth density, all beings must let love rule, let love back in, and reopen the heart to achieve wholeness. So the law of one blinks neither at the light nor at the darkness, but is available for service to others or service to self. However, service to others results in service to self, thus preserving and further harmonizing the distortions of those entities seeking intelligent infinity through these disciplines. So, basically, by not seeking the gateway to intelligent infinity, either through the path of service to others or the path of service to self, we were not making enough progress with long, peaceful lives. So the Logos and the Council of Nine on Saturn decided that us having shorter lives with additional chaos would help us choose today whom we would serve, to say it in a biblical way. Or perhaps in the words of Bob Dylan, it might be the devil or it might be the Lord, but you're going to have to serve somebody. In short, these short, traumatic lives were chosen for us because these catalysts and conflicts often encourage us to help others, which will help our soul or Pokemon form evolve to the next level of light body activation. Adversity will either bring out the worst or the best in us. I'm sure we can all agree on that. It is that testing or the impression of the weight of Saturn upon us that turns our dreams into diamonds or simply pulverizes them back into ashes. Perhaps the distinction between what survives inside of us and what doesn't is based upon what is in key with the theme of service to others and what is truly being inspired by one of the 9 muses, the particular aspect or archetype of the one infinite creator we are tapping into through the roots of the tree of mind, as Ra puts it, in order to get our message to humanity. Although we do suffer in these short lives and remain ignorant for lifetime after lifetime of the big picture, the decision made by the 9 and the 1 was based upon a merciful view. Allah is entirely merciful. We live a life, and to Allah we return, and then we are sit back and do our best, and to Allah we return. The Quran, through Gabriel, proclaims reincarnation, as did Jesus, Emmanuel, and the Buddha. This is the path to perfection. Be ye perfect as my Father is perfect. Before Abraham was, I am, simply suggested that Jesus was an ancient soul who is now one with the Father. This father was most likely the Logos, who is certainly one with the greater Father God in the center of the multiverse. This God is far different from the jealous God of the Old Testament, who seems to be Enlil of the Anunnaki. So I get this interpretation from the Sumerian legend called the Atrahasis, which is their version of the flood story. And of course, it's worth noting that their story predates Noah and the Bible. But I digress. In the Atrahasis epic from Sumeria, Enlil decides there are just too many humans making far too much noise, and he proposes a variety of means to depopulate the planet, including famine, disease, drought, and finally flood. The Council of Anunnaki seems to agree, and Enki reluctantly agrees not to directly warn to protect humanity. This may align with the sinking of Atlantis. Indeed, the Emerald Tablet states that Thoth Ningishzida went to Egypt from Atlantis, and Noah, or Ziastudru, made it to Turkey near Lake Van. It is important to realize that this was something like a global flood, and in the post-Atlantean age, none of the rebooted post-Diluvian empires were able to hold all the wisdom of Atlantis. So, we're looking at the self-same wisdom tradition as we look at Thoth, our Ningishzida with the caduceus, and relate that to Hermes, and then the Kundalini. It's obvious we're staring at the self-same wisdom tradition from Egypt to India to Mesopotamia. My point is that Enlil did not want this knowledge shared and called this Kundalini serpent wisdom satanic, although he was actually the biblical Satan, always accusing us and trying to depopulate us. The serpent wisdom, through the figure of Thoth Hermes, definitely passed from Egypt to Greece. It certainly seems to have made it to India. In the Hindu culture, by the way, the Noah character is Manu. And so we understand that giants have been discovered in the American Southwest, coinciding with this pre-Diluvian age, perhaps. But once we find these giant skeletons, once the Smithsonian gets them, we don't hear any more about them. But they've been found in Nevada at this certain cave, this Lovelock or Livelock cave, I forget, around the Grand Canyon as well. These red-haired beings. We also get this sort of part of the ancient wisdom from Atlantis in the Bible, such as ye reap, so shall ye sow. This is karma. And we get the idea that the right hand of God is righteous to save. Okay. We understand that the right side corresponds to the solar, expansive, and the Jupiterian energies, whereas the left side is the severe path. Left arm is related more to Mars. Left side is the cold, Saturnian, severe path, but it also is the grounding, cooling path. The right side is the warm, expanding path. And we get that from the Bible. I will save you, protect you with my righteous right hand. And and we get the idea that Lord God, your Lord God is one from the Bible. But that's more like the one in the center of all creation. The truth is, the Lord God, which is Jehovah Elohim, or simply Elohim or God, is actually an erroneous reduction of the plurality that was the Elohim. Elohim, the im ending in Elohim, is a male plural ending. It's a council of male Anunnaki, such as Enlil and Enki. So we have to deconstruct our mistake to reclaim the proper understanding of how the two brothers, Enlil and Enki, became Yahweh and Satan. It's a deep dive, to be sure, but other parallels remain between the Anunnaki and Sumerian mytho-history and the Elohim Hebrew Israelite mytho-history. I'll leave you with this. One particularly salient parallel is found in the fact that the Elohim took Enoch, the seventh in the kingship line after Adam, after he lived 365 years, and Enoch walked no more because God took him. Remarkably, that is not dissimilar from the Sumerian pre-flood story in which two gods, Shamash and Adad of the Anunnaki, take the seventh Sumerian king, Enme-Daranki, for a magic carpet ride. Okay? They both are the seventh. Their names are somewhat similar, Enme-Daranki and Enoch. They both are taken. They both live 365, which relates back to the sun. and the proper cycle. So we really don't know, okay? What we do seem to understand is that the Old Testament was a traumatic time for these Israelites, okay? And although we talk about as Christians these mighty men of renown, these Genesis 6 giants, these B'nai Elohim, what we really want is a new golden age, maybe an Atlantean golden age or an Arcadian golden age of shepherd kings. That's what Trump promised us, of course, but he's kept the old war in Ukraine going, and he's managed to start a new one in Iran. He, along with Benjamin Netanyahu and the IDF, have taken whatever fragile alignment was holding the world together and it's broken it apart. Now, thankfully, a sign in the heavens is telling us this is not accidental. Trump's very name is a wake-up call. Gabriel is telling us to awaken. Hegseth is the name of a serpent. The serpent was not Enki, but rather Enlil. His half-reptilian blood has been the true axis of evil going down through the ages since those halcyon days of ancient Atlantis. The fact that we were promised a new golden age with Trump and what we got was a new world order plan, war with Iran, is not altogether different from what happened to the ancient Israelites who left Egypt. They thought they were going for 3 days to feast and worship. Maybe it was 3 weeks, but it ended up being 40 years in the wilderness, and they had to face off against the Anakim, snakes raining down upon them. I mean, and then, yes, they had to go face these giant descendants of the Anunnaki. They had to fight for their land and fight for their freedom, and showing mercy was a crime. So as in Stockholm Syndrome, it is understandable that they became psychologically trained by the line of warrior kings from Joshua to Saul to kill them all. Indeed, Saul displeases Yahweh when he does not kill all the Amalekites. And Benjamin Netanyahu is still reminding the current Israelites that Yahweh demanded of Saul to kill them all. So you see, this psychotic behavior is what happens when you have competing factions of the Anunnaki, Enki's progeny versus Enlil's progeny, trying to get humanity to work and worship them, fight for them. It seems that Enki eventually had to leave Earth after his son Marduk actually made a deal with Enlil. Enlil was and is a half-reptilian, and his affiliation with his mother, Tia, from the Draco-reptilian side, led to humans being sacrificed, these so-called shape-shifting reptilians. They were half Anunnaki, half reptilians, and maybe some were full-on reptilians. It seems for a time a dark alliance between these reptilians and actual gray aliens from Orion really did run things on Earth. I mean, as with the condensation of the plurality of the Elohim into the singularity of God, they've taken their plurality and condensed it all into the false god Baal. Baal can be tied directly to Enlil or any number of half-reptilian Anunnaki bloodline rulers. Sacrifice to Baal basically just means sacrifice to these negatively oriented beings. In truth, Baal just means Lord, Master, or owner. And we are mistaken as to who the Lord or Master really is. It's surely not these beings any more than it's a talking basketball, old ball. Is everyone having a ball? No, of course not. There is nothing funny about sacrifice to Baal. Unfortunately, many of these Epstein-class elites have either genetics or an ideology in them going back to Enlil. They've taken the left-handed sinister path of service to self. This path they learned on this planet from the original devil. Enlil most assuredly is Satan and Set, the father of lies. Although Enki does fit the pattern of being the serpent in the garden by trying to enlighten humanity, it is Enlil who orders the disease, famine, and flood in the Atrahasis myth. Enlil is the accuser, adversary in the story, while Enki is the savior. Enlil's connection to the reptilian shapeshifters put him even more in the camp of evil on this planet. Set is the author of chaos in the Egyptian narrative, and certainly chaos is what the Israeli-U.S. military alliance is stoking in the world. Mythologically, we need to return to Vishnu. Within the Egyptian tradition, after Set destroys Osiris, Isis recollects the pieces and inseminates herself with his seed to produce Horus, Chorus, come back like a brontosaurus. And that's what we have done. We have all come back for this time. We are the ones we are waiting for. So see the revolution, be the revolution. Om Shanti, Om